Hello everyone, welcome back to the channel. My name is Adrian Lloyd. This is just my stupid opinion.
You profit from fear and hate, hoarding wealth and amassing power. The walls have been unleashed. We will not submit or cower. It's humanity's darkest side. We are ruled by thieves and liars.
So I'm sure by now you've all heard the news. It happened yesterday, the 23rd of April, where where a man, or should we even call him a man, some animal, ended up getting a rider's van, renting out a rider's van, and going down Yonge Street and at the corner of Yonge Street and Finch in Toronto, and ended up plowing into a group of pedestrians. And as it stands now, the original reports were saying that 9 people were dead, 16 were injured. However, by now that has been raised to 10 people dead, 15 injured. I'm not sure who it was, but somebody ended up dying in hospital. Okay, so let's get right into this. First off, this is very similar to the type of attacks that we've been seeing going around in Europe these days. I mean, we can look to in Nice, France as a good one. We can also look at some of the attacks that have taken place in England over the last year or so. And this seems to be the new MO of a lot of terrorists. It has to do with, instead of grabbing a gun or a bomb and trying to cause a lot of damage that way, they get in a car and then they go into a busy area and they plow down as many people as possible. And it's proven itself to be an effective strategy so far. Effective for a couple different ways. Of course, effective because you can take out a lot of people, but it's effective too because most people, 99%, will not realize what is happening until the attack takes place, because it just looks like another car going down the road. Now, sometimes they cause attention to themselves, such as we have some reports that this van that happened in Toronto was going upwards of 70 kilometers an hour, and this is so he's definitely breaching the speed limit. So this would cause some attention. But this seems to be the main reason that a lot of these terrorists these days have switched over from the classic attacks that we know, the gun attacks, the mass shootings, into these car attacks. Now, as it stands, though, there's nothing right now that's linking him back to ISIS. There's nothing linking him back to a radical Islamic group or anything of the sort. What we do know is that the man's name, or the animal's name, was Alek Minasian. So that's all we have right now. And from the name, people are speculating that it sounds Armenian. I agree, it does sound, the last name does sound Armenian. Some are saying possibly Lebanese or Iranian is his descendants. His lineage. Some are even theorizing that this is that he's a Christian. Apparently, Minasian, according to some, is a Christian Armenian name, but that's the only evidence I found to even support him being a Christian, is the fact people are saying that his name is a Christian Armenian name. I have no idea about that, so I'm not even going to touch on that too much right now. But either way we look at this, this is definitely a form of terrorist attack. I would call it a terrorist attack regardless, because this is exactly what the point was to cause fear amongst the population. And so what we do know at the moment, we know is that the driver was apprehended about 25 minutes after the van first began driving southbound down Yonge Street, the police chief said. The vehicle was at times traveling along the sidewalk and at other times against traffic in the northbound lanes of the busy street, a major artery of Toronto. Now, I've heard some people that have that live close to Toronto. I've been to Toronto plenty of times, been down on Yonge Street plenty of times. Many people who live in Toronto compare this to something, say, Broadway in New York. You know, it's one of the main streets in Toronto. And it is. It's the longest street in Toronto. Actually, I believe it's one of the longest streets in the world, possibly Yonge Street. So, Yonge Street is a big vein to going through Toronto from uptown to downtown. Just so anybody who doesn't live in the area, you kind of get the idea of what Yonge Street is. It really is a main vein of the Toronto traffic. So this would definitely have caused some, we can tell right off the bat that this would have caused some This would have caused some attention if he's driving too fast, if he's driving on the wrong side of the road. So people were starting to be aware before he actually rammed into the pedestrians that something was wrong, that something was out of place. Sorry, a bunch of seagulls outside making a bunch of noise. Fucking shithawks. And I do have video footage of the driver getting apprehended. And here we go. So we can see the standoff that's taken place between the cop and the individual, this Alec Manation that everybody's talking about. And if you look off just to the side there, you can see the rider's van that he used in order to bowl everybody down. And we also have an overhead footage of the arrest taking place. I believe the overhead footage starts filming just after the scene we just saw. So as we can see, he's going out, he's trying to confront the cop, backing up, and then he surrenders and backs down. And you can see, actually, that something in there, you could see that something he dropped. Now, he was claiming, as we could hear from the first footage, that he was claiming that he had a gun. Shoot me, we have a gun, I have a gun. I believe they actually said it was a cell phone, in fact, that he had in his hand. He didn't have a gun that he could actually use, but he was trying to encourage the cop to shoot him, which he refused to do, and then we have the arrest as well. So, this is what ended up happening down on Yonge Street yesterday, and ever since this happened, there's a few things that we're starting to already see. A few things happen is that there were several areas in Toronto that began breaking out concrete barriers, very similar to what we're seeing in Europe right now. The Toronto Maple Leafs had a game yesterday, and I can't remember who it was against. I haven't been paying attention to hockey over the last few months. But anyway, the Toronto Maple Leafs were playing a game in the area, and when they heard that this attack took place, within a couple hours, the staff over at the Air Canada Centre had already begun. They had already begun putting down the concrete blocks, and they were putting that in several other places. And this has become a very regular sight over in Europe, is these concrete barricades that is protecting pedestrians from any sort of car attack can take place. Now, many people have also been saying, we can't believe this is here. We can't believe that these sort of attacks took place in Canada. And this is the sort of thing we see in other places around the world, such as Europe. How could this possibly have come here? Well, personally, I've been waiting for it. And we can't actually say that this is the start, although I even think yesterday I may have posted a tweet about how this is the beginning of it, but even I was wrong when I said that, because this isn't the beginning. If you remember, a few months ago, there was an attack in Edmonton. There was an attack in Edmonton that had a very similar MO. It ended up having to do with a guy who ended up driving down some pedestrians, and he also drove down a cop and ended up stabbing him with a knife. So this is not the first time we've had an attack like this on Canadian soil, so people need to keep that in mind. All in all, this has already hit our soil, and we can't be surprised with the way our government has gone about this. They haven't done anything to protect us or anything to keep us safe. In fact, at that time, Ralph Goodale, who is our Minister of Public Safety, he was down in Toronto as part of the G7 was having a get-together. As I was saying, there was a G7, there was a Canada Foreign Affairs Minister during the G7 in Toronto. Oh, wait, hold on, I gotta switch the screen. There we go, here we go. So as we can see here, this is the itinerary from the Government of Canada website, and it says that Chrystia Freeland, the Minister of Foreign Affairs, and Ralph Goodale, the Minister of Public Safety and Emergency Preparedness, were down in Toronto in this area on April 22nd and April 23rd, for the G7 Security Ministers meeting. So, the first one was the G7 Foreign Affairs, which met on April 22nd, 23rd, and then from the 23rd to 24th was the G7 Security Ministers meeting. So he was in the area when the attack took place. Yet he said he doesn't believe this is any form of terrorist attack or anything of the sort. These are the people who are leading us right now. Ralph Goodale was there. He saw how many people died, but he doesn't see it as a terrorist attack or a public emergency, really. This is concerning when he is the Minister of Public Safety and Emergency Preparedness. Well, what would you call somebody who gets in a van and plows down a number of your citizens on the side of the road? Would you not say that that's an emergency preparedness situation or a matter of public security? Really? He doesn't think that. Okay, so that's where we're at right now with our leaders. And the thing is, too, is when we look at Justin Trudeau's tweet, which I don't actually have pulled up here, but when he was talking about the matter, he called it an incident. This is what this guy running a van into and killing 10 of our citizens is. It's only an incident in Justin Trudeau's mind. But if we think back to the way he handled, say, the hijab hoax, oh, he was all over that about how such a tragedy and terrible. Meanwhile, in that situation, nobody died. The allegation was that a girl got attacked on the side of the road, which is bad enough as it is, but that turned out to be fake. But Justin Trudeau was all over that, especially because it was a Muslim girl who got attacked. But here we have citizens who have been under attack, and not all of them are citizens, because I believe I heard 2 of them were Korean, that 2 Koreans were also killed in this attack. So it's not strictly Canada that we have to, it's not strictly Canadians who were killed in this attack. Now, a lot of people are also making reference to this. It was a screenshot that was saved by archive.is of Alex Minasian's Facebook page, and a lot of people are making reference to this. And it's this, he ended up posting this just like minutes before he ended up carrying out the attack. But it says, Private Recruit Minasian Infantry 00010, wishing to speak to Sergeant 4chan, please. C23249161. The Incel Rebellion has already begun. We will overthrow all the Chads and Stacys. All hail the Supreme Gentleman, Elliot Rogers. So what the hell does that mean? What is that tweet supposed to say? Well, we can go through it very quickly. Well, when we're talking about this, he was actually in the Canadian Forces, at least temporarily, and then he was adjudicated as at best an average recruit. So what is he making reference to? Well, when he talks about this infantry 0010, if we take a look over here on the National Defense and the Canadian Armed Forces website, Task Force Statement for Military Occupation Structure Identification 00010 Infantryman. So this is what he's making reference to in that. He's calling himself an infantryman in this whole thing. I don't know who the Sergeant 4chan is supposed to be. He's making reference, we all know what 4chan is, but he says Sergeant 4chan, so I don't know if this is somebody specific that he's making reference to. He's also using it as people are using it as an excuse, saying that he was radicalized by 4chan, which is laughable at best, that he got radicalized by 4chan to commit this, especially because the next part he says, the Incel Rebellion. Well, Incel, this is supposed to be part of these people who are involuntary celibates. That's what they're making reference to, involuntary celibate. His whole thing about this involuntary celibate are men who can't get women. They can't get laid, they can't attract women for one reason or another, and because of that, they feel that they have been screwed over. How dare some women not sleep with these people? That's what this incel is talking about. And it just reminds me of I've dealt with people like this before, not necessarily people who identify as incel, but I've dealt with the type of people that have this sort of attitude, and they believe themselves to be the good men. They believe themselves to be beyond all the other attitudes, the standard masculinity. They listen to women. They know what women want. They'll be that man that every woman wants to have a shoulder to cry on. This is the point of this incel group. This is how the way they look at themselves. But when that's not what women want, sure, it's good for them to have support. Like, that is what you'll be good for in that situation. You'll be good to support them and be a friend to them. But that's all you've done. You friend zoned yourself. This is what these guys do. And then when the women don't come back and want to sleep with them, they blame the woman for not wanting to sleep with them. All simply because these guys have no game. So that's what this whole incel thing is about. And he makes reference to super gentleman Elliot Rogers. Who was Elliot Rogers? Well, he was the one in 2014 that committed that the Santa Barbara mass killings where he ended up he blamed women. He made a post on Facebook, I believe, where he was blaming women for not sleeping with him, and then I believe it was the next day he went out and he committed a shooting in Santa Barbara. So this is who he's making reference to, and this is the same thing that this Elliot Rodger guy was talking about. Is he said that, well, women just won't sleep with me, women don't like me. Why don't they like me? They don't like you because you aren't what they want. See, every single woman, just like most guys. Okay, maybe I won't deal with every single woman, but let's talk about generals. So generally, most guys, most women want somebody from the opposite sex that attracts them, but it holds those qualities that everybody likes. So, for instance, if we're talking from a guy's perspective, we like women who are feminine because that's what attracts us to it. And it's the same thing the other way around. Most women want a man who acts like a man. They want a man with masculine characteristics. If they want somebody who, like, if they truly want somebody to be there and treat them all nicely, well, that's what friends are for. That's exactly what friends are for. So let's not pretend that these guys are being screwed over. Let's not pretend like these guys are all nice and they don't do anything wrong and they're just screwed over. If only they had a chance. If only these women would give them a chance. No. They had plenty of chances and they screwed everyone up. And instead of adjusting their strategy, because clearly the friend going in and trying to be nice and be their friend is not working for them. And one of the reasons is because those women become their friend and not their boyfriend. And these guys are pissed off about that. Well, they have nobody to blame but themselves. But then they will go and blame all Chad and Stacy's. And you know what a Chad and Stacy is? People like you and me who have a relationship, who are sexually active, people who actually, did the bare minimum and found a partner. This is what Chads and Stacy's are. And again, I forgot to switch that over so you guys could actually see that. But right here in what he says here, the Chads and Stacy's, that's what I'm making reference to. So, as it stands, this may not have anything to do with religion or anything to do with radical Islam even. This, from the sound of it, as it stands and what we have to work with, this does sound like a guy that was pissed off because women didn't like him. But that's not an acceptable excuse to go on a rampage like this. And again, what did this solve? You went and you rammed down a bunch of people that had nothing to do with your whole problem. You went and you killed a bunch of people that hadn't, like, some of these guys, that people that died and were hit were men. Or, like, are you pissed off at them too because of it? Well, clearly he is. These are probably the Chads and Stacy's that he's making reference to. So what we just need to remember at the end of the day is that Alec Minasian is just a piece of fucking shit. That's all this guy is. He's a piece of fucking shit who decided to go out and kill Canadian citizens and Canadian residents simply because he couldn't get laid. At least that's the story we have now. Details could change as things go on, because this is only the initial reporting. There's still a lot more to be unveiled about this guy. Hell, I would like to see if he's always been a Canadian citizen, or was he an immigrant that achieved citizenship status? Which one is it? Because the fact he was in the Canadian Forces, which says that he's a citizen. But again, I ask you, because if we heard him talk, when we heard him talk in that first video, when he's trying to surrender, not surrendering the police, but he's saying, "I have a gun, shoot me," he did have a noticeable accent in there. And it's possible that if he's lived his whole life, that's where the accent, like, if it's possible that even if he's been in Canada his whole life, that he has maintained the accent. I've met people like that before. One of my old coworkers was, she was Cambodian, and she's born and raised in Canada, yet she still had a little bit of an accent. Despite of it. So it happens, but chances are if this guy had such a thick Middle Eastern accent that he was not born in Canada, born and raised a citizen, and came to Canada and received his citizenship. And which then puts into question, if that is the case, how good is our vetting process if this is the sort of thing we're allowing? At one time, really, I think it was very good. But underneath our current government, that has just been eroded. And it continues to get eroded. One thing that I'm looking into right now is Bill C-75. And Bill C-75 wants to rewrite a lot of our the law, a lot of the time frames in the criminal code, so surrounding certain crimes. And it's actually, I haven't had a chance to look too much into it, but as I've heard a few other people talking about it, it's very concerning, some of the stuff they want to do. One thing, for instance, that actually falls into this scenario that we're talking about is that apparently the offense for using a vehicle as a weapon has been lowered under this Bill C-75. And there's certain other concerning things like that need to be addressed in it. For one thing, people who have been accused of like pedophiles who have been accused right now, as it stands, they can't go into certain public areas. They can't be by schools. They can't be by parks. Blah 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 blah. Well, that is apparently going to change under Bill C-75. That will allow these people to be in those public areas. So I haven't looked too much into it. This is just what I've heard when listened to a couple other people talking about it. But it is very concerning if these are the changes that are happening, and it falls perfectly in line with this sort of attack, because it's just a bill, it's not law, but this man has been arrested. If he doesn't go to trial for he's already had his day in court at least, but the trial hasn't started yet. We'll see how long it takes, but generally it takes at least a year. If that bill was to get put into law within that time, which most likely it will, especially with a liberal majority government, then that means that this man could face less time in jail for his attacks that he committed. So as more details come out, I will come back on and help. I will come back on and let you all know what's going on. But as it stands, we have 10 people dead, 15 injured that are currently in hospitals. Hopefully, nobody else ends up dying from injuries. We'll end up seeing about that. But right now, all we can do is come together as Canadians. Now, in this situation, everyone always wants to offer thoughts and prayers. I'm a little sick of hearing this, where people just say where our thoughts and prayers are with the families and the victims. It's like, yeah, thanks, you did the exact bare fucking minimum by coming out and saying thoughts and prayers. Thank you for you can't contribute anything else. This is what our politicians do every fucking time. They don't do anything. They don't try and implement anything new. All they say is thoughts and prayers, peace, everybody. And I'm a little sick of it. Let's do something a little bit more than this. Let's do something more than thoughts and prayers. How about Justin Trudeau actually stops trying to import fucking terrorists back into Canada? Hey, that's a good start. Maybe we'll have less terrorist attacks if ISIS fighters aren't in our fucking country. Well, thank you very much for listening, guys. I'll catch you all soon.